Across our planet, natural wonders stretch the limits of reality. A lake so pink, it looks completely fake. An underwater waterfall where the ocean pours directly into the earth. And volcanoes that rewrite the rules. Some made of ice. Others oozing mud. And one pouring molten rock straight into the sea. Some feel unreal, others feel unstoppable. These are Earth's wildest creations. Over 3,000 pillars rise from the forest floor in southern China. Sandstone skyscrapers reaching for the sky. Some reach over 200 metres, narrow columns standing where continuous ridges once existed. This is Zhangjiajie, China's first national park. Water carved these formations over millions of years. It exploited tiny cracks in the sandstone until only these pillars were left. The result defies expectations, a landscape of incredible vertical islands. Dense subtropical forest grows wherever the rock allows. Monkeys move easily between pillars. They've adapted to treat the space between columns as home. For people, the ground is fractured, steep, and largely impassable. Instead of paths that wound through the mountains, engineers built ways to climb straight through them. The Bailong elevator rises 326 metres up a cliff face, one of the tallest outdoor elevators on Earth. Cable cars span the valleys. Walkways lead to viewing platforms anchored directly into the pillars. At Tianmen Mountain, 999 steps climb to Heaven's Gate, a natural arch 131 metres high carved through solid rock. And a glass-bottom bridge extends 430 metres across the canyon, suspended 300 metres above the valley floor. It does not connect two paths. It exists only to observe. This landscape shaped Chinese painting for centuries. More recently, it inspired the floating mountains of Avatar. The pillars remain, filling with mist every morning. From a distance, this hillside in southwestern Turkey appears covered in snow. Bright white, layered like winter slopes descending toward the valley. But Pamukkala isn't cold, and the white isn't snow. It's travertine, stone formed by warm water. 17 hot springs spill from the plateau above. The same springs that the ancient Romans built an entire spa city around. As the water flows downhill, calcium hardens, slowly building these terraces. Hundreds of shallow pools cascade down the slope. Bright turquoise water sits in brilliant white basins, some no larger than a bathtub, others spanning several meters. Each terrace curves and overlaps with the next, creating a pattern that covers the entire hillside. Above, the ruins of Hierapolis still overlook the terraces. The formation is still active. Water still flows. 2,000 years after Rome fell, the white stone is still being built slowly and constantly. Sperm whales are the largest toothed predators on Earth. Animals built to hunt in total darkness, kilometers below the surface. So when they're first seen like this, the behavior can seem confusing. They hang motionless in open water, heads up, tails down, suspended vertically like pillars. For 10 to 15 minutes at a time, they drift without movement, eyes closed, not breathing. They're sleeping. Scientists only discovered this in 2008. Stumbling across entire pods standing perfectly still in deep water, a behavior no one knew existed. A moment of complete calm in the life of an apex predator, creating a scene unlike any other in the ocean. Kilauea on the island of Hawaii is one of the most active volcanoes on Earth. Molten rock reaches the surface here more consistently than almost anywhere else. And when it does, it flows. Rivers of molten rock follow the path of least resistance, hurtling toward the ocean. Then fire meets water. Lava at over 1,000 degrees Celsius slams into the Pacific. The surface flashes solid, black glass forming instantly. Steam explodes upward in towering white plumes. The rock cracks, edges collapse, new fragments tumble into the surf. For a moment, it looks like the edge of the world. What remains is fresh coastline, black stone pushing into the Pacific. This is land at its youngest. No soil, no plants, just lava, cooled hours or days ago, still radiating heat. Most of the Hawaiian Islands form this way, layer upon layer of lava, stacked over hundreds of thousands of years. On the island of Kauai, 500 kilometers northwest, the result is already visible. The Napali coast. Towering sea cliffs rise over 1,000 meters directly from the Pacific, carved from volcanic rock millions of years old. Rain and waves shaped what lava created. Valleys cut deep into the ridges. Waterfalls pour off the cliffs, falling straight into the ocean below. Dense green forest clings to hardened lava. It's the same process as Kilauea, just millions of years later. Across the world, in southern Italy, the same forces behave very differently. Mount Etna is one of the most active volcanoes on Earth, erupting almost continuously, spilling lava, releasing ash and gas into the atmosphere. And then from the crater, this. A perfect smoke ring lifts into the sky, circular, clean, rising steadily without collapsing. It holds its shape, expanding slowly as it climbs. They form when gas escapes through a narrow vent, rolling into a spinning ring as it rises. The rings can reach hundreds of meters in diameter before they stretch too thin and dissolve. For a few moments, one of the planet's most violent forces resolves into perfect geometry. In northern Arizona, a crack in the Navajo sandstone descends into darkness. Antelope Canyon is less than 4 meters wide in places. The walls curve and twist, polished smooth by water. Flash floods carved this slot canyon. Rare, violent flows channeling through a single fracture in the rock. Light filters down from above, and the stone begins to glow. The erosion here is focused, precise, like a blade cutting through stone. "200 kilometers south, erosion stops cutting narrow paths and begins carving an entire continent. The Grand Canyon is 446 kilometers long, up to 29 kilometers wide, and over 1,800 meters deep in places. The river exposed rock layers spanning nearly 2 billion years of Earth's history. Limestone, sandstone, shale, and at the bottom, ancient granite and schist from deep in the crust. Near the base lies the Great Unconformity, a 1.2 billion year mystery gap missing from the rock record. A billion years of history simply gone. This is erosion acting on a larger scale, carving hundreds of kilometres. Further west on the Arizona-Utah border, we see erosion on its broadest scale. Monument Valley. These formations, some over 300 metres tall, are remnants of a plateau that once covered the entire region. Wind, water, and time wore down the softer rock. What remains is the hardest stone, standing where the rest has been carried away. Across Arizona, erosion scales up, from tight slots to deep canyons to what remains after almost everything is gone. 3 different timescales, 3 different forces, one continuous process of removal. Off the northwest coast of New Guinea, over 1,500 islands rise from the open ocean. Raja Ampat. Most are uninhabited. Some are barely large enough to appear on a map. Between them, open water, empty horizons, and almost no human infrastructure for hundreds of kilometres. This isolation matters. Clear water reveals coral reefs, wrapping nearly every island. The coral density here is among the highest recorded anywhere on Earth, over 1,000 species in a single region. The reefs here overlap and interlock, leaving almost no exposed seabed. Fish fill every layer of water. Schools move as single masses, bending around the reef like fluid. Where the reefs are this strong, larger life follows. Manta rays glide in from deeper water to feed on plankton concentrated near the surface. Some have wingspans exceeding 5 metres, wider than the length of most cars. Despite their size, mantas are entirely harmless. There are no recorded attacks. Divers swim directly beneath them as they feed. In sheltered bays between islands, entire lakes fill with jellyfish, millions of golden bodies pulsing through enclosed water. With no predators, their stings faded over generations. Isolation has protected this archipelago, letting life accumulate layer by layer. In the winter of 2021, a cone-shaped mound of ice appeared in an open field near Almaty, Kazakhstan. It formed within weeks. Groundwater, under pressure, forced its way up through a narrow opening in the frozen earth. As the water sprayed into sub-zero air, it froze almost instantly, building upward, layer by layer, around the vent. By spring, it had melted, gone as quickly as it appeared. A natural formation that existed for only one season, captured before it vanished. Across coastal Alaska, rivers flow cold and clear, fed by glaciers from mountain ranges that hold ice year-round. This cold water is the trigger. In late summer, millions of salmon leave the Pacific and enter these rivers, migrating back to the exact freshwater streams where they were born. They return to spawn, a one-way journey. As the salmon push inland, the rivers narrow. Waterfalls and rapids create bottlenecks, places where the fish have no choice but to jump. This is where the bears wait. Brown bears gather at the base of the falls. They stand in the current, motionless. The salmon leap. The bear barely needs to move. Some brown bears here weigh over 600 kilograms, roughly the weight of 8 fully grown men. During peak runs, a single bear can catch dozens of fish in a day. Often they eat only the richest parts, the brain, the roe, the skin, and leave the rest. What's left behind feeds scavengers, fertilizes the forest, and drives one of the largest transfers of energy from ocean to land. In the Karakum Desert of Turkmenistan, a crater 69 metres wide burns without interruption. Flames cover the entire floor, fed by methane rising from deep underground. At night, the crater glows against the desert, a ring of fire visible for kilometres. Locals call it the Gates of Hell. But this was no natural ignition. In 1971, Soviet engineers were drilling for gas when the ground collapsed beneath their rig. The equipment fell into an underground cavern, releasing methane into open air. Fearing the gas would spread to nearby villages, the engineers set it on fire. They expected it to burn out within weeks. More than 50 years later, the fire is still burning. Across the Great Plains of the United States, a single storm can dominate the entire sky. Flat land stretches to the horizon. The storm holds its position above it. At its base, the cloud rotates, a vast organized system rather than passing weather. Supercells form reliably in only a few places on Earth, where warm ocean air, cold mountain air, and powerful upper winds collide. Lightning fractures through the core. Rain and hail fall in narrow, concentrated shafts. These storms are capable of producing the planet's most violent tornadoes, long-track events that can remain on the ground for hours. A single rotating system, stable enough to persist and powerful enough to reshape everything beneath it. In southwestern Bolivia, a prehistoric lake dried up tens of thousands of years ago. What it left behind is the Salar de Uyuni, over 10,000 square kilometers of hardened salt, nearly perfectly flat. The surface breaks into hexagonal plates, formed as the salt expands and contracts with temperature. During the dry season, the salt is white, stark, and unbroken. The horizon becomes difficult to read. Land and sky separated only by a thin line. Then the seasons shift. A thin sheet of rain spreads across the flats, just centimeters deep. The water is shallow enough to remain perfectly still, and the salt beneath is flat enough to act as a single reflective plane. The ground disappears, the sky reflects cleanly. Clouds appear both above and below. With no visible horizon, depth collapses. People walking across it appear suspended, disconnected from any surface. At sunrise and sunset, everything feels lighter. Colors glow in every direction, and reality begins to loosen its grip. The Serengeti stretches across Tanzania and into Kenya. 30,000 square kilometers of open grassland beneath an enormous sky. Seasonal rains shift where fresh grass grows. And when the grass moves, so do the herds. Over 1.5 million wildebeest, accompanied by hundreds of thousands of zebra, migrate in a continuous loop across the plains. The movement is constant. Dust clouds trail behind columns of animals stretching for kilometres. The migration itself becomes a feature of the landscape. Lions stalk the edges. They hunt strategically, isolating weak or young animals. But many hunts fail. Wildebeest scatter, fight back, or simply overwhelm predators through sheer numbers. Even apex predators don't control this movement. The migration flows around them. But at the rivers, the movement concentrates. The herds bottleneck at the Mara and Grumeti rivers, narrow crossing points where thousands of animals are funneled into the same stretch of water. Hesitation spreads along the bank, then panic takes over and the crossing begins. Animals plunge into the current. Some are trampled, some are swept downstream. And in the water, crocodiles wait. They don't chase. They don't need to. They position themselves where the migration must pass. Once an animal enters the river, the decision has already been made. The crossing continues. Beneath the hills of New Zealand's North Island, a cave ceiling disappears into blue light. These aren't stars. They're glowworms, insect larvae that produce their own bioluminescence. The light acts as a lure. Each glow marks a trap, drawing insects upward into threads too fine to see. What looks like a night sky is a feeding system, revealed only by light. Norway has over 1,000 fjords carved into its coastline. They were cut by glaciers during the last ice age, rivers of ice moving slowly downhill, grinding through rock, carving valleys far deeper than sea level. What remains are narrow channels of dark seawater, flanked by mountains that plunge vertically from the surface. There are no gradual slopes. Height appears instantly. At Lysefjord, The cliff face of Preikestolen rises 604 metres directly above the water, a flat plateau jutting out over empty air. Tourists stand at the edge, where one step forward means a drop twice the height of the Eiffel Tower. Nearby, Kjerrogbolten, a boulder wedged between two cliff walls, suspended over a 1,000-metre drop. Meltwater from the highlands spills off these edges. Waterfalls like the Seven Sisters fall hundreds of metres in near free fall, hitting the fjord with no intermediary. The fjords funnel migrating fish into tight channels. And where the fish concentrate, orcas appear. Apex predators the size of buses, hunting in channels narrow enough to swim across. Surfacing so close to shore, you can hear them breathe. From above, the Amazon appears as a single unbroken surface of green. No edges, no landmarks. The rainforest covers over 5.5 million square kilometres, roughly the size of the contiguous United States. It holds an estimated 390 billion trees across 9 countries. Green dominates everything. From above, it looks uniform and calm. Drop below the canopy and everything changes. Light fragments through layers of leaves. Space tightens. The forest becomes crowded, layered, and relentlessly active. Toucans and macaws cut through the understory in flashes of red, blue, and yellow. Colour and motion become the language of survival. But not everything moves. The common potu freezes on broken branches, its mottled grey-brown feathers blending perfectly with dead wood. Eyes closed to slits, motionless for hours. It survives by disappearing. Camouflage takes other forms. Glass frogs cling to leaves, their translucent skin revealing internal organs, bones, eggs, even a beating heart visible through their undersides. On the forest floor, they vanish. Other creatures survive by deception. A snake hangs from the branch, still, coiled, watching. Then the scale feels wrong. The head doesn't move. It isn't a snake. It's a caterpillar. False eye spots sit where a head should be. The body narrows like a neck. It doesn't need to move. The shape alone is enough to make predators hesitate. Motion fills every layer of the Amazon. Columns of army ants overwhelm anything in their path. Jaguars move alone through dense vegetation, while otters hunt loudly in coordinated groups. Others survive by slowing the system down. Sloths barely move at all, algae growing in their fur. The rivers become highways. Life shifts from branches to water. Pink river dolphins navigate flooded forests and murky channels, hunting fish by echolocation in water too dark for sight. They're freshwater dolphins, adapted entirely to the river, unable to survive in the ocean their ancestors left millions of years ago. Near Manaus, two massive rivers meet but do not mix. The Rio Negro, dark, acidic, stained by decayed vegetation, runs alongside the sandy brown Amazon River for over 6 kilometers. The boundary is visible from above. Two distinct bodies of water, side by side, until turbulence finally forces them together downstream. The Amazon isn't one landscape. It's millions of systems operating at once, all alive, all connected. Across Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, the jungle floor opens without warning. Perfectly round pools of water drop straight into the earth. Still, clear, unnaturally calm. These are cenotes. Sunlight cuts through the surface in narrow columns, reaching deep into the water. Particles drift through the beams, making depth visible. From above, swimmers appear suspended, bodies floating in light rather than water. The clarity is extreme. Visibility stretches tens of meters straight down. There's no current, no surface flow, just depth. But the pool is only the entrance. Below the surface, flooded tunnels wind through limestone. Narrow passages open suddenly into vast chambers, stalactites hanging overhead, formations built over millennia, now submerged. No rivers exist on this peninsula. Rainwater dissolves the rock, forming a vast underground network that stretches for hundreds of kilometers beneath the forest. The ancient Maya considered cenotes sacred, entrances to the underworld. They threw offerings into these pools, gold, pottery, sometimes human sacrifices, feeding the gods below. The Yucatan exists as much below the surface as above it. A landscape defined not by what you see, but by what lies hidden beneath. There are around 700 mud volcanoes on Earth. Over half of them are in Azerbaijan. Across the dry landscape near the Caspian Sea, volcano-shaped mounds rise from the ground. Some only a few meters tall, others over 100. At their peaks, thick grey mud bubbles and breaks the surface. It spills slowly over the rim, flowing outward in heavy sheets before hardening into layered crust. The ground behaves as if it's erupting, but there's no heat. These formations are driven by underground gas, mainly methane, trapped beneath layers of clay and sediment. As pressure builds, the gas forces the sediment upward. The rock liquefies. Mud reaches the surface and escapes slowly, releasing pressure without fire. The shapes are volcanic. The process is not. In tropical forests across Southeast Asia and the Pacific, eucalyptus trees grow tall and straight. From a distance, they look ordinary. Up close, the trunks are striped in green, blue, orange, purple, and red. The bark peels away in thin layers throughout the year. Beneath each layer, fresh bark is exposed, bright green at first. As it ages and dries, the green darkens to blue, then purple, then orange and red. Because different sections shed at different times, entire forests take on bands of colour, living gradients that change without ever repeating. The Himalayas are the highest mountain system on Earth, built where two continents collided and never stopped pushing upward. Here, scale dominates everything. There are no roads, no vehicles beyond a certain height. Supplies move by foot and by yak. Animals adapted to thin air and cold rock, carrying loads through terrain where machines fail. Everest Base Camp forms briefly on a glacier. Tents and equipment anchored to ice and stone. Above this point, the climb becomes slow and exposed. The route narrows. Fixed ropes trace a single path across snow and rock. Movement happens one step at a time, spaced out across the slope. Above 8,000 meters, the body begins to shut down. The death zone, where humans cannot survive for long, even with oxygen. The summit of Mount Everest sits at 8,848 metres, another 800 metres through the death zone. Every step becomes a negotiation with the body's limits. For a few minutes, the few who reach it stand on solid ground at the edge of the atmosphere, as close as we routinely come to space without leaving Earth. On Middle Island, off the coast of Western Australia, a lake sits bright pink against dense green forest. Lake Hillier. The water is pink year-round. Not a trick of light, not seasonal algae bloom, just pink. The colour comes from microorganisms that thrive in water 10 times saltier than the ocean. The lake is roughly 600 metres long, separated from the ocean by a thin strip of sand and vegetation. From above, the contrast is absolute. Pink water, white sand, green trees, blue ocean. Cut off from the sea, the lake behaves on its own terms. The Galapagos Islands sit roughly 900 kilometres off the coast of Ecuador. volcanic islands isolated in the Pacific, far from any continental landmass. This isolation changes how life develops. The giant tortoises here are the largest on Earth. Some weigh over 400 kilograms and can live for more than a century. The islands are actually named after them. Galapagos meaning tortoise in Old Spanish. Charles Darwin studied these tortoises in 1835, noticing how shells differed island to island, variations that would completely reshape how we understand evolution. The marine iguana starts as something familiar, a land reptile clinging to volcanic rock. Then it does something no other lizard does. It enters the ocean. Marine iguanas dive to feed on algae growing on submerged rocks. They hold their breath for up to an hour, swimming with flattened tails adapted for propulsion. When they surface, they return to the rocks to bask, expelling excess salt through glands near their nostrils. A land animal rewritten by isolation. In these same waters, predators concentrate. Hammerhead sharks gather here in schools, sometimes hundreds at a time, circling seamounts and drop-offs. Sea lions move easily between land and sea, hunting offshore and resting on beaches with equal ease. The Galapagos are protected. Limited fishing, limited disturbance. Cut off from the world, life adapted and thrived. On a rocky hillside near the Mediterranean coast of Turkey, flames burn directly from stone. No lava, no wood, no visible fuel. Just fire emerging from cracks in the rock, burning continuously for thousands of years. The flames are fed by natural gas seeping up through the limestone. Wind barely affects them, rain doesn't extinguish them. The hillside is dotted with dozens of separate fires, some small, some large enough to hear. Ancient sailors used them as a landmark. The flames have been burning since before recorded history. The Sahara is one of the largest continuous deserts on Earth, over 9 million square kilometers of sand, rock, and heat. scale removes reference points. Dunes repeat endlessly. Horizons blur in the heat haze. The land feels featureless and infinite. But from above, something breaks the pattern. A perfect circular form appears in the desert, concentric rings spanning over 40 kilometers across. The Risha structure. No one on the ground noticed it. The pattern only became visible once humans reached orbit. For decades, it was thought to be an impact crater, but there's no evidence of collision, no shocked quartz, no meteorite fragments. The Risha structure is a geological dome formed as time and weather stripped away softer rock and left harder layers standing as rings. The result is a bullseye visible from space, so distinct that astronauts use it as a landmark. In Arashiyama, on the outskirts of Kyoto, a forest rises in perfect vertical lines. The Sagano Bamboo Grove. Bamboo grows densely here. Thousands of tall, slender trunks standing close together, rising 20 meters or more without branching. The forest becomes pattern instead of landscape. Light filters through the canopy in soft, broken bands. The space feels enclosed yet open. Monks chose this grove for meditation centuries ago. The repetition creates focus. The rustling becomes a form of silence. Deep in Venezuela's rainforest, a flat-top mountain rises vertically from the jungle floor. Walls of sandstone climb straight up. At the summit, a river flows straight into the open air. Angel Falls descends 979 meters, the tallest uninterrupted waterfall on Earth. The water falls for so long it turns to mist before it reaches the bottom. Wind catches it halfway down, scattering it across the cliff face. By the time it lands, it's no longer a stream. It's vapor, absorbed by the rainforest below. It's a natural wonder, water falling higher than most mountains. Near the town of Battambang in northwestern Cambodia, a dark opening sits in an otherwise ordinary hillside. Nothing moves, no hint of what's inside. The cave is packed with life. Millions of wrinkle-lipped, free-tailed bats crowded against the walls and ceiling, waiting in darkness. At dusk, they leave to hunt. The cave empties in a continuous stream, a living ribbon pouring into the sky, twisting and reshaping itself as it spreads. The flow never stops. Minutes pass, then more minutes. The stream stretches across the horizon, darkening the sky in a narrow band that undulates like smoke. Over 3 million bats can emerge in a single evening. They disperse across the surrounding countryside to feed on insects, mosquitoes, moths, beetles. A single bat can consume thousands in one night. By dawn, they return. The cave refills, ready to empty again the next night. At over 5,000 metres in the Peruvian Andes, a mountain appears in stripes. Vinacanca, also called Rainbow Mountain. Natural mineral bands run across its slopes in horizontal layers, reds, yellows, greens, purples, stacked cleanly, one above the other. For most of recorded history, none of this was visible. Vinacanca was buried beneath snow and ice. As glaciers retreated, the cover pulled back. The mountain was revealed. Local communities had long known it was there. But tourists didn't discover it until 2015. Within years, thousands climbed here each week, drawn to colours that climate change had made visible. California is known for its coastline, beaches, highways, sprawling cities pressed against the Pacific. Most people picture the coast, not the interior. But inland, California holds some unique natural wonders. In Sequoia National Park, the General Sherman tree stands 83 metres tall. It contains more wood than any other tree on Earth, enough to build dozens of houses. The tree is estimated to be between 2,300 and 2,700 years old. It was already ancient when the Roman Empire fell. Giant sequoias grow only on the western slopes of the Sierra Nevada in a narrow band of elevation. Their thick bark protects them from forest fires. Further north, Yosemite National Park. Granite walls rise straight from the valley floor. Meadows open between cliffs. Rivers move slowly through pine forest. The scale is immediate and overwhelming. Half Dome rises nearly 1,500 metres above the valley floor. Its shape is unmistakable, a smooth dome split cleanly along a natural fracture. Among Yosemite's impressive waterfalls is Horsetail Fall, a narrow ribbon of water dropping cleanly off a sheer granite face. For most of the year, it's a waterfall shaped by height alone. But for a few evenings each February, the angle of the setting sun aligns with the cliff behind it. The falling water catches the light, it turns orange, then red. For a few minutes, the cliff looks as if it's pouring fire. In southwestern Morocco, goats appear in trees. They stand calmly on branches, grazing on argan fruit, balanced on limbs barely thick enough to hold their weight. This isn't rare, it's routine. The branches bend, but the goats don't fall. Multiple animals occupy the same tree, distributed across different levels like ornaments. But trees are not the limit. In the Italian Alps, wild mountain goats scale the Cinghino Dam, a near-vertical concrete wall. They spread out across the surface, standing where there shouldn't be footing at all. Not fleeing danger, just feeding, drawn upward by minerals seeping through the stone. For animals built this way, gravity is a suggestion, not a rule. Between Jordan and Israel, the Dead Sea sits over 430 meters below sea level, the lowest point of dry land on Earth. It's one of the saltiest bodies of water in the world, nearly 10 times saltier than the ocean. The water is so dense that the human body can't sink. Floating feels effortless. You don't need to tread water. You simply lie back and remain on the surface. Salt crystallizes everywhere. Along the shoreline and beneath the surface, sharp white formations grow. Shelves, pillars, and ridges built from mineral deposits. And one of these salt pillars now supports a lone tree just offshore. It didn't grow here. It was placed there. An art installation, because nothing living can survive in this water. The trunk is rigid, the branches bleached pale. slowly encased as salt continues to build beneath it. The lake is shrinking. Water levels drop more than a metre each year. As it recedes, it becomes more extreme. Denser, saltier, more hostile. The Dead Sea really does deserve its name. Each autumn, millions of monarch butterflies move south across North America. They lift off together in coordinated flight, a continental migration carried by insects that weigh less than a gram. The journey takes weeks. Many don't survive. Those that do will spend winter clustered in mountain forests. In spring, they begin the return north. But no single butterfly completes the journey. It takes multiple generations to finish one migration cycle. Somehow, the final generation finds forests it has never seen, following routes last flown by butterflies that no longer exist. Madagascar broke away from the African continent hundreds of millions of years ago. Life here evolved in isolation, cut off from the rest of the world's ecosystems. The result is an island where familiar forms followed unfamiliar paths. Baobab trees dominate parts of the landscape. Massive trunks storing thousands of litres of water, topped with sparse, seasonal leaves. Their shape is unmistakable. Thick at the base, branches splayed upward like roots reaching into the sky. They look like they've been planted upside down. They survive by holding reserves rather than spreading roots. Ancient, efficient, and unmistakable. Some have survived for over 1,000 years. In the northwest, the Tsingy de Bemaraha rises from the forest, limestone eroded into vertical blades. Razor-sharp stone forests stretch for kilometres, carved by water into pinnacles packed so tightly that movement between them becomes nearly impossible. Lemurs evolved here with no competition from monkeys or apes. Over 100 species exist, from mouse lemurs small enough to fit in a palm, to the Indri weighing over 9 kilograms. All descend from a single ancestral primate that reached the island millions of years ago. And where prey diversified, a hunter followed. The fossa. Cat-like in appearance, but not a cat. More closely related to a mongoose. It evolved to pursue lemurs through the trees. Long tail for balance, retractable claws, agile enough to follow prey along branches. A predator shaped by the only prey available. Evolution with no outside influence. An island writing its own rules, one species at a time. The Dolomites rise sharply in northeastern Italy. Pale stone towers and sheer vertical walls breaking through alpine forests. The mountains are built from dolomite, ancient coral reefs lifted from a shallow sea. At dawn and dusk, the landscape transforms. Alpenglow. The peaks catch the first and last light of day while the valleys remain in shadow. Grey stone turns pink, then orange, then deep red. For a few minutes, the mountains appear lit from within. Then the light moves on, the colour fades, and the Dolomites return to stone. At night, on certain coastlines, the water glows blue. Not from artificial light, but from living organisms. Bioluminescent plankton, microscopic algae that emit light when disturbed. A wave breaks and the surf lights up. Footsteps in shallow water leave glowing prints. Each movement triggers a flash. The effect is strongest on beaches where the plankton bloom in high concentrations. Parts of California, the Maldives, Puerto Rico, Thailand. A phenomenon that turns an ordinary shoreline into something absolutely extraordinary. On the southwestern edge of South Africa, the city of Cape Town sits between mountain and ocean. Table Mountain rises behind it, a flat-topped massif over 1,000 metres tall, anchoring the coast against the Atlantic. It's fixed, immovable, visible from nearly everywhere. Everything that follows happens below it. Between May and July, the water off Cape Town comes to life. The Sardine Run. Billions of sardines migrate northeast along the coast, forming shoals that stretch for kilometres. When threatened, the fish compress into dense, spherical formations, bait balls, a last defence built on confusion. But it doesn't last. Seals strike repeatedly, tearing through the ball to break it apart. From below, marlin cut through at speed, the fastest fish in the ocean, using agility and acceleration to slice through the mass before it can reform. Dolphins arrive next. They work in groups, herding the sardines tighter, driving the bait ball upward, compressing it from all sides. Gannets next. Bodies folded, wings pinned back. They spear the water at full speed, striking from above. The water becomes total chaos. And then something changes. As seals move in to feed, great white sharks position themselves beneath the chaos. They don't chase. They don't scatter prey. They strike once, from below, launching their full body out of the water, seal held in their jaws. Here, in the waters of Cape Town, the food chain plays out right in front of our eyes. In the Kaidam Basin of northwestern China, shallow lakes glow emerald green against barren desert. Dachiden Emerald Lake. The colour comes from mineral-rich water and the way light passes through it. Different depths produce different shades. Bright turquoise in the shallows, deeper green where the water pools. Salt crusts form along the edges, white against the vivid water. The lakes sit at over 3,000 metres elevation, surrounded by mountains and empty land. No vegetation, no rivers feeding in, just mineral-rich water evaporating slowly under intense sun, leaving this colourful natural wonder behind. The Namib is one of the oldest and driest deserts on Earth, stretching along Namibia's Atlantic coast for over 2,000 kilometres. Massive sand dunes rise from the desert floor. Some exceed 300 metres, among the tallest dunes on the planet. Their crests stay sharp, reshaped constantly by wind. Along this coast, cold ocean air pushes fog inland, often the only moisture available for months. Beetles harvest it from the air. Plants absorb it directly through their leaves. Further inland, the moisture disappears completely. Gemsbok cross open dunes with almost no access to water. They tolerate extreme heat, conserving moisture where nothing seems available. Life here survives by efficiency. In some regions, the desert organises that efficiency itself. Circular gaps repeat across the sand. They're known as fairy circles. Bare centres, grass gathered at the edges. The pattern stretches for kilometres. Why it forms is still a bit of a mystery. What's clear is that it limits how much life the land allows to grow. Then the desert stops allowing life at all. Deadvlay. A white clay pan surrounded by rust-red dunes. Dead trees stand upright. blackened trunks rooted in cracked earth. They've been dead for over 600 years. A river once reached this basin, then dunes blocked its path, causing the water to vanish. The air is so dry that decay never finished. No rot, no collapse. The dead trees remain, creating one of the most otherworldly scenes nature has ever left behind. Along the southern coast of Australia, limestone cliffs drop vertically into the ocean, some over 100 metres tall, extending for hundreds of kilometres. The Great Australian Bight. The cliffs are sheer, flat-topped, shaped by the constant southern swells that hammer the base. Below, the Southern Ocean. There's nothing between here and Antarctica. No islands, no shelter, just open water and westerly winds that circle the globe uninterrupted. This is where Australia ends. Yellowstone National Park sits on top of a supervolcano, a massive chamber of magma roughly 80 kilometres long, lying just beneath the surface. Close enough to heat the ground you walk on, close enough to shape everything above it. The heat escapes constantly. Geysers erupt on schedule. Hot springs boil in vivid pools of colour. Grand Prismatic Spring, the largest hot spring in the United States, stretches 110 metres across. From above, its rainbow rings are unmistakable and iconic. The colours aren't minerals, they're bacteria, heat-loving microorganisms that thrive in water hot enough to scald skin. This heat feeds the ecosystem. Thermal springs keep water flowing through winter. Wetlands remain ice-free. Grass grows where it shouldn't. Elk and bison graze in vast herds, some of the largest concentrations of large mammals left in North America. Moose wade through shallow ponds, feeding on aquatic plants. Wolves follow these herds. Reintroduced to Yellowstone in 1995 after being absent for 70 years, wolves changed the park's behaviour. Not through direct predation alone, through fear. Elk stopped lingering in valleys. They moved more, grazed less in concentrated areas. Vegetation returned along riverbanks. Beavers followed. Wetlands expanded. The system rebalanced. Grizzly bears exploit seasonal abundance, fishing for trout in spring, feeding on elk calves in early summer, foraging for berries and roots in autumn. At a carcass, a grizzly feeds first. Wolves sit back and wait. They know the pecking order. Great grey owls hunt silently through the forest. Coyotes fill the spaces wolves don't occupy. Ravens follow predators waiting for scraps. Life operates in layers, day and night, predator and prey, visible and hidden. It's a system balanced on a knife's edge, one that starts with magma and ends with wolves. Off the east coast of Africa, the island of Mauritius rises from the Indian Ocean. Peter Both Mountain dominates the skyline, a sharp peak climbing over 800 metres. Its summit is crowned by a massive boulder, balanced precariously at the top. The rock looks placed. It wasn't. It's part of the original formation, exposed as softer rock eroded away. But offshore, the island creates an illusion. From the air, the ocean appears to cascade into a deep underwater chasm, as though the sea is pouring off the edge of the world. But it's not a waterfall. Mauritius sits on a shallow plateau surrounded by steep drop-offs. Sand and silt from the coast are pulled off the shelf and into deeper water. The movement creates incredible gradients of colour. Turquoise shallows bleeding into deep blue, with pale sediment streaming downward in visible trails. An optical illusion. The island appears to be draining into the ocean floor. South of Luanda, Angola's capital, a cliff edge drops into a valley of bizarre layered stone. Miradouro da Lua, the moon viewpoint. Sharp ridges, deep gullies, spires of rock worn into shapes that look almost dangerous. From certain angles, the terrain resembles the surface of another planet. A place that feels impossible to reach and impossible to forget. On the northeastern coast of Brazil, a landscape of white sand dunes stretches as far as the eyes can see. Some dunes rise up to 40 metres. Between them, thousands of freshwater lagoons, bright blue and green against the pale sand. Lençóis Maranhenses. The dunes are made of fine quartz sand. The lagoons form during the rainy season from January to June, when rainfall fills the valleys and can't drain through the rock beneath. Fish survive in these lagoons, primarily the wolffish or tryra. As water levels drop, the fish burrow into wet sand and enter a dormant state, waiting for rain to return. From above, the pattern repeats endlessly. White dunes, blue water. No obvious boundaries. People swim in the lagoons, wading between dunes that shift with the wind. A landscape specific to this stretch of Brazilian coastline, where geography conspired to create something unmistakable. Khao Sok National Park is experienced by water. A boat carries you across Chao Lan Lake, a reservoir created in 1982 when the Rachaprafa Dam flooded the valley. Limestone cast towers rise vertically from the water on all sides. Dense jungle clings to the cliffs. The world closes in slowly rather than revealing itself all at once. From above, the scale becomes clear. Peaks climb over 900 meters, covered entirely in rainforest. Flooded valleys wind between them. The canopy is unbroken, ancient, layered, impossibly dense. One of the oldest rainforests on Earth, older than the Amazon. Floating bungalows rest quietly on the lake. Small wooden structures anchor to the water, surrounded by stone and green. Beneath the jungle canopy, Rafflesia kerry blooms rarely. One of the largest flowers on Earth, up to 80 centimeters across. It appears without warning, lasts a few days, then rots. No leaves, no stems. It's a rare parasite, living inside the roots of vines until it's ready to flower. Elephants move between forest and water, bathing in the lake, feeding along the shore. Life surfaces briefly, then disappears back into the rainforest. One of the most unique landscapes in Southeast Asia, brought to life by a man-made lake. Rising from the flat desert of northwestern New Mexico, a jagged rock formation soars nearly 500 meters into the sky. Shiprock. Thin walls of stone radiate outward from the base. They run for kilometers across the desert floor like ancient pathways. The Navajo call it Tse-bit-ai, the rock with wings. A sacred site, climbing has been prohibited since 1970. From a distance, the formation's sharp profile resembles a ship under sail, cutting through the empty land. Solid, isolated and visible for over 100 kilometers in every direction. Japan's position, a chain of mountains between Siberia and warm ocean currents, creates winter unlike anywhere else on Earth. Cold air from Siberia sweeps across the Sea of Japan, collecting moisture before hitting the mountains of Honshu. The result is some of the heaviest snowfall on Earth. Villages like Shirakawa-go receive over 8 meters of snow in an average winter. Thatched roofs are designed steep to shed the weight. Wooden farmhouses buried to their eaves. Winter becomes the dominant force. At Mount Zhao, trees become encased in layers of ice and snow. The snow monsters, Juyo in Japanese. Trees on exposed ridges catch moisture from passing clouds. The water freezes instantly in sub-zero temperatures, building outward with each gust of wind. Layer by layer, the trees transform into massive frozen sculptures, some over 10 meters tall. Entire forests of white monsters, barely recognizable as trees. Nothing else on Earth looks quite like this. In Jigokudani, Japanese macaques have found a gentler way through winter. The monkeys descend from the forested mountains to natural hot springs, volcanic thermal pools that remain warm year-round. They sit in the water for hours, still, relaxed. Only their heads above the surface, snow gathering on their fur. Steam rises around them. Snow falls silently. Some close their eyes, others watch the forest. There's no urgency, no tension. When they've had enough, they climb out, shake off, and disappear back into the trees. A moment of complete calm in the middle of one of the harshest winters on Earth. In the desert of northern Arizona, a nearly perfect circle interrupts the flat landscape. The Barringer Crater. (1,200 meters wide, 170 meters deep. Walls rising impressively above the surrounding desert. It was formed roughly 50,000 years ago when a meteorite, about 50 meters across, struck the Earth at over 40,000 kilometers per hour. The impact vaporized the meteorite and excavated millions of tons of rock in seconds. The rim is still sharp. The floor is still flat. It's one of the best preserved impact craters on Earth. A scar from space, frozen in the desert. Across the island of Bohol in the Philippines, over 1,200 rounded hills rise from the flat landscape. The Chocolate Hills. Each one is smooth, symmetrical, and roughly the same height. It's a scene found nowhere else on Earth. During the dry season, the grass covering them turns brown. The hills become chocolate-coloured. Between these hills, in the dense forest canopy, lives one of the most alien-looking creatures on Earth. The Philippine tarsier. Fully grown, it fits in the palm of a hand, weighing less than 150 grams. Its eyes are enormous, each one larger than its brain, fixed in their sockets and unblinking. Their necks can rotate nearly 180 degrees in each direction. They don't move their eyes. They can't. They turn their entire head to track movement. A tiny, alien-looking primate hidden among 1,000 chocolate hills. Iceland sits on a crack in the earth in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the boundary where the Eurasian and North American tectonic plates are pulling apart. The planet is splitting open, and at Silfra Fissure, you can see the divide. A crack in the earth filled with glacial meltwater, so clear you can see over 100 meters through it. The fissure widens by about 2 centimeters every year. Divers swim between continents. It's the only place on Earth where you can do this. Fire rises through the split. Iceland has over 130 volcanic systems. Eruptions are frequent. Lava flows across the land, spreading fresh black rock over older ground. In 2021, Fagradalsfjall erupted after 6,000 years of dormancy. Molten rock fountained from the earth for months. The ground glowed orange at night. At Þríhnúkagigar, you can actually descend into a volcano. The magma chamber drained 4,000 years ago, leaving a vast hollow space beneath the surface. The walls are stained red, yellow, and green. Mineral deposits left behind by heat and gas. Most magma chambers collapse after they empty. This one didn't. You can walk inside the Earth's plumbing. On the other side of the very same island, everything freezes. Vatnajökull, Europe's largest glacier, covers over 8,000 square kilometres. Beneath it, meltwater carves tunnels and chambers through the ice. The caves glow blue. Light filters through compressed ice, hundreds of years old, scattering every colour except blue. The walls are smooth, sculpted by water. The formations change every year as the glacier shifts. Iceland is a landscape caught between creation and erosion, splitting, burning, melting and freezing all at once. A country that shouldn't be stable, but somehow it is. In the far reaches of the Northern Hemisphere, the sky moves. Curtains of green, violet and red light ripple across the darkness, shifting, folding, stretching from horizon to horizon. The Aurora Borealis. It's caused by solar wind, streams of charged particles released by the sun, travelling millions of kilometres before colliding with Earth's magnetic field. green from oxygen at lower altitudes, red from oxygen higher up, violet and blue from nitrogen. A sky in motion driven by forces from beyond the Earth. In northwest Botswana, seasonal floods spread across the Kalahari Desert. The Okavango River never reaches the ocean. Instead, it flows inland into a vast basin of sand. Between March and June, floodwaters from Angola's highlands arrive, expanding across roughly 15,000 square kilometres of dry land. Channels form, islands emerge. The landscape reorganises itself around water. Elephants arrive first. They wade through chest-deep water, crossing between islands, reshaping channels as they move. Entire herds push through flooded plains, trunks raised, creating pathways others will follow. Hippos claim the deeper waterways. They cluster in channels and pools, submerged during the day, emerging at night to graze on islands. The largest bodies dominate the flooded core. Giraffes move carefully across higher ground, feeding on trees that rise above the floodline. Antelope cluster along the edges where water meets land. Lions hunt along the channels and crossings, places where prey are forced into narrow passages. African wild dogs pursue antelope across partially flooded plains. Hyenas scavenge along the water's edge. And with such a dense concentration of animals in a shrinking space, tensions inevitably rise. Elephants confront lions at water crossings. Hippos clash over territory in the narrowing channels. Wild Dog's one of the largest inland deltas on Earth. A river that vanishes into the desert and creates a world of its own. Antarctica is the coldest, driest, and windiest continent on Earth. The lowest temperature ever recorded was minus 89.2 degrees Celsius at the Soviet Vostok Station in 1983. Winds can exceed 320 kilometers per hour. Ice covers 98% of the land, in some places over 4 kilometers thick. The scale overwhelms orientation, horizons blur, distance becomes impossible to judge. White extends in every direction. Humans arrive briefly and only with support. Research stations cling to the coast. Ships navigate carefully through ice-choked waters. Movement is slow, planned, and limited. Survival here is artificial and temporary. Yet somehow, life finds a way. King penguins gather in colonies numbering tens of thousands, standing on exposed rock and ice, enduring winds and cold with no shelter. They don't migrate, they don't hide, they huddle. The penguins rotate positions within the colony, moving from the exposed edges to the warmer centre and back again. A collective behaviour that spreads warmth across the entire group. No technology. No insulation beyond feathers and fat. Life adapted fully where humans cannot. Volcán de Fuego is one of Central America's most active volcanoes. It erupts frequently, sometimes multiple times per hour, sending ash plumes thousands of meters into the sky. Explosions repeat with little warning. Molten rock bursts from the crater. Ash spreads across the surrounding landscape. And inside the eruption cloud, lightning. Volcanic lightning. As ash and rock fragments collide within the plume, they generate static electricity. When the charge becomes strong enough, it discharges. Lightning tears through the eruption cloud, branching, crackling, illuminating the ash from within. It's one of nature's rarest spectacles, a volcano creating its own storm. On the border between Canada and the United States, the Niagara River drops vertically over a limestone cliff. Niagara Falls. Three separate waterfalls, Horseshoe, American and Bridal Veil Falls, combine to form one of the highest flow rates on Earth. Over 2,800 cubic meters of water crash over the edge every second during peak flow. Enough to fill an Olympic swimming pool every second. At the base, the plunge pool churns violently, water crashing into water, carving deeper into the rock below. Roughly 12,000 years ago, Niagara Falls began 7 miles downstream from where it stands now. The force of the water slowly wears away the softer rock beneath the harder capstone. The land is being eaten away, slowly but visibly. But humans have built around it anyway. Boats carry tourists into the mist at the base. Walkways extend along the rim. Observation decks hang over the plunge pool. Infrastructure is pushed dangerously close to something that's still moving backward. In the Mangostal region of western Kazakhstan, a landscape appears that feels disconnected from the rest of Earth. Bozira. White limestone cliffs rise abruptly from flat desert. Sharp towers and ridges stand isolated, sculpted into forms that look deliberate, almost architectural. The rock is pale. The sky is vast. The ground between is empty. This formation rises like a layered cake. Locals call it the tiramisu. Few people have heard of Bozira, even fewer visit. The region is remote, hours from the nearest settlement, accessible only by rough roads. The landscape feels alien, not eroded. The shapes don't follow familiar patterns. An unknown desert that looks like the surface of another planet. In the mountains of central Colombia, a river turns blood red. Caño Cristales, the river of 5 colors, though red dominates everything. The color comes from Macarenia clavigera, an aquatic plant that grows nowhere else on Earth. The river is rarely more than a metre deep. Clear water reveals every detail below. Sections of the river turn deep crimson, so intense it looks unnatural. At the southern tip of South America, jagged mountain ranges rise abruptly from open plains. Patagonia. The peaks are sharp, exposed, granite spires shaped by glaciers that once covered the entire region. Ice still flows down from these peaks. Glaciers, thousands of years old, descend through valleys, carving the landscape as they move. At the terminus, ice cracks and collapses, carving into glacial lakes with sounds like thunder. Glacial meltwater feeds vast lakes across the region. On the Chilean side, along Lago General Carrera, this water carved solid marble. The Marble Caves. Smooth, swirling chambers hollowed out over thousands of years. The walls reflect blue light from the water, creating spectacular patterns that shift with movement. Off the northwest coast of Africa, the island of Madeira rises sharply from the Atlantic. Volcanic peaks climb over 1,800 meters. Valleys drop steeply to the sea. Much of the terrain is near vertical. But the island is built to be crossed on foot. Centuries-old irrigation channels, levadas, wind across the mountainsides, carrying water from the wet north to the drier south. Narrow paths run alongside them, turning infrastructure into trails. Elsewhere, stone staircases climb directly up ridges. The Pico do Arreiro to Pico Ruivo trail connects two of the island's highest peaks, a route carved into exposed rock, suspended over deep valleys. At points, the path narrows to a metre wide. Sheer drops on both sides, clouds drift below. Some trails descend into different terrain entirely. The Fernal Forest. Ancient laurel trees, twisted, gnarled, covered in moss, stand in a forest older than human settlement on the island. Mist fills the air constantly. Low cloud moves between the trunks. Light becomes muted and diffused. It's one of the last places on Earth this forest still survives. The forest feels separate from the rest of the island, quiet, almost eerie. On the northeast coast of Northern Ireland, roughly 40,000 basalt columns rise from the sea. The Giant's Causeway. Most are hexagonal, nearly perfect, interlocking like tiles. They fit together so precisely the ground looks engineered, cut, measured and placed by intention. It wasn't. Around 60 million years ago, molten basalt forced its way through chalk beds and began to cool. As it contracted, it fractured into hexagonal columns. The geometry is natural, governed by physics, not design. The cliffs behind reveal the layered structure, stacked columns extending inland, evidence of multiple lava flows. A landscape that looks like architecture, built entirely by Mother Nature. Off the coast of Queensland, 74 islands rise from the turquoise waters of the Coral Sea. The Whitsundays. Most are uninhabited, covered in dense rainforest, surrounded by coral reefs and shallow protected bays. On Whitsunday Island, Whitehaven Beach stretches for 7 kilometres. The sand is 98% pure silica. Brilliant white, cool to the touch even under direct sun. It is often ranked among the most beautiful beaches in the world. At Hill Inlet, the northern end of Whitehaven, tidal currents create something extraordinary. White sand swirls into shallow turquoise water, forming patterns that shift with every tide. From above, the shapes look painted. Bands of white spiraling through gradients of blue and green. The patterns change constantly. No two tides leave the same design. One of the most photographed natural landscapes in Australia, and it looks different every 6 hours. And if you thought some of these natural wonders were unique, you should see the island that really shouldn't exist, but it does. Click on screen now to see Iceland, the most unique country on Earth.